Hey, what's up? It's Kit. We're gonna talk about this Blue Heaven BHL75 XHR MAGBRAKE. It's the new reel that was released by Studio Ocean Mark, and I'm pretty sure there's going to be quite a few videos of this being used down the line. And I just wanted to talk to you about this because we've just received this in the mail. We've actually used it already, not to fish, but to just cast and see how it goes. And we've done a few things to it. And I'd like to share what things we've found on this reel that's quite interesting. And for that, what we're going to do is actually compare this with an L50, okay? And what is the difference between an L100 and an L80? Okay, so these reels, somehow there are similarities to these three reels, and there are things that you need to know. So we're gonna use these three reels as reference. Okay, so what we're gonna do is we are going to start from the handle, and then we're going to this part right here, and after everything, we're gonna open the reel and see exactly what's inside. Okay, so the very first thing that you should actually see when you're first into this whole Studio Ocean Mark casting reel is the fact that this has a round knob, as opposed to, of course, the air egg that we have here. So this knob actually makes it so that when you grab it, it's always in position. Okay, so there are times when you're casting, or when you're, it's, even if it's weighted, for some people, they of course like this sort of handle, which you can upgrade to. That's not a problem. But if you upgrade the whole handle, because the shaft that's on here is actually quite different. I've tried putting the air egg on this, and it does not work. Do I like the air egg as opposed to the knob? No, actually, for the casting bit, no, because I like the fact that it's always in position. Okay, I don't have to fiddle around, or actually, because it's round. The difference is when you're actually fishing with gloves on, and that's where this actually comes into play. I think this is something that Studio Ocean Mark actually considered when they were building this. I had the option for the factory to install a carbon handle and an air egg, which I was asked, and I kind of declined. So I did ask for this to be factory modified. So just like my old one, okay, where this is factory modified, this out of the box, as you could have seen in the unboxing video, factory modified. So for this one, I chose not to, because I like the fact that you could just actually grab this. Okay, so that's the main difference for the casting version. For the first version, the L50 and the L80 MAGBRAKE, it's the same. So no change there. Now, move in. Very next obvious thing is this one. Now, if you look at the L100, you can see that this part right here is actually quite big. Okay, comparing that to the L80. Now, what this is the cam chamber, and inside is the pinion gear. The pinion gear on this has two ball bearings, as opposed to the L80, which has one. Sorry about that. Okay, so there's only one bearing that supports the pinion gear for this. For this, it has two. Now, same with the L50 right here. With the L80, you can see that there's only one bearing that supports it. For this particular one, they have two. Now, why is this? This reel is designed for big tuna and GT. This is why they used something that's quite rigid there. Okay. Downside, of course, is that it makes this side kind of big. As you can see, this side right here is compact. Now, the L75 is actually an L50. So as you can see, they're the same size. The difference is that it's wider. Okay. So the first casting reel, or one of the first, was actually an L50 MAGBRAKE. And it shared a lot of parts with an L50. Now, the L75 shares a lot of parts with different reels, and it's really kind of like a hybrid between quite a few reels. This is closer to an L80 than it is an L50, as you can see that, but it's wider still. So you can see that if you compare the spool, which is the next obvious thing that you see going here, it's actually wider than the spool of an L80. Okay, and we'll get to that later. Obviously, the spool itself has a ridge here, where instead of thumbing the braid, you can thumb the spool. This is very useful when you have a lot of braid outside the reel, and you could just thumb it like that, and it helps. It really helps because the friction that you put on there is just right for distance casting, as opposed to putting out on a braid right here. I at least I feel it like that. It's quite convenient. So it's a very good added feature. Now the downside, of course, is that the spool itself is narrower than it should be. So that's a downside, at least for quite a lot of people. However, remember that the spool is wider, so you still have a lot more than the usual L50. Okay. There's two sizes of this reel. There's the L75 and then the 105. Now, the 105 is going to be wider. Okay, comparing that to the 80, of course, it will be wider. I don't have that reel yet. If I receive that, I am going to also show that to you guys. Okay, so obviously we have the mag here, which you adjust. Okay, just like that. Now, having said that, here's the interesting bit. From minimum, I could cast it all day, no issues. And then when it started picking, the wind started picking up, all I had to do was just move it, basically one click down. And it was enough to actually cast quite far. In fact, I found the magnets to be kind of strong. And we'll get to that in a bit, okay? Now, another thing that's changed is this massive gearbox right here. Comparing that to an L50, you can see what the difference is. It's huge. It's a big difference, because this is also the first XG in the Studio Ocean Mark lineup. So this reel also has a different lever, as you can see here. Now, a normal lever would be something like this, or for the bigger sizes, something like this. The L-shaped drag lever. This is so that when you have your line, okay, and we'll illustrate here, cast it out, and let's say it loops, okay, like that, it actually pops out as opposed to getting snagged. Okay, now compare that with the normal. Because of the L, it will get snagged. See? Kind of difficult. Okay, so see, it snags. But for this, it'll just If you accidentally get it there, it'll just pop out. Okay, because there's, see? So there's that. Now, wide spool, very, very important, because here's the thing. Actually had a conversation with Studio Ocean Mark some time ago when it came to the casting reels, and I said, like, you know what, they're nice and everything. The problem is, you know, on a narrow spool, it has no way but to go down. Okay, so to illustrate, let's go to the board right here. Okay, now with the spool, let's say that's the side of the spool. Okay, narrow. Okay, so that's the side of the spool, right? Can you see it? Oh gosh. All right, so that's the side of the spool. The light. All right, so let me zoom in for you guys. Okay, that's the side of the spool. And what happens is that when you're casting on a full spool, it easily goes out. But as the spool size decreases, there will be a lot of resistance. Okay, there will be a lot of resistance, and it's gonna be hard. However, if the spool is wide, okay, what happens is that the line actually has some distance going sideways and going down. So the size of the spool, how it actually drops down, okay, is slower. So you still have a consistent diameter, and when the line shoots out, it will have less resistance. Okay. To illustrate this more, okay, I have two spools here that we could use as a demo. This is obviously the Blue Safari. Let's actually zoom out a bit. I don't know why that was zoomed in. Okay, so we have two reels, and I want to show you exactly what I mean by the spools when you're casting out, why a narrow spool is better. So this is empty. This is uh, filled. Okay. Now this is a shallow spool filled with line, and this is a mid spool that is empty. In theory, I haven't done this, but in theory, this will stop sooner than this. If this was a deeper spool, the time that it would stop is actually even shorter than this. Okay, so let's do this. There we go. And as you can see, this had a couple of seconds more. Now, this reel is a really bad example because it's not a casting reel, it's a jigging reel. But it illustrates exactly what I'm talking about. Again, we are going to spin this. Okay, and each and every single time, this will spin more because it has less resistance from the spool itself. When you're translating that to casting reels, what happens is that as your line decreases, the spool becomes tougher to turn. So a wider spool will have your line go sideways, okay, and also go down. And what happens is that the rate of the spool shrinking is less than when the spool is narrow. So a wider spool for casting is actually better. It gives you more distance. And this is the reason why we have this L75. Okay. Now, XG. Why XG? Because when you're casting, you want that line to get back to your reel as fast as possible. Now, when you're casting, of course, what happens is that most times you will level the line with your fingers. The biggest change as far as the frame is concerned is this part right here, the bridge. You can see that the bridges are actually more thrown out. Okay. Now, um, to illustrate this better, let's look at the L100, and you can see that it's actually closer than it is right here. Okay, there's a big gap on this one because, and here it is with an L80, you can see. Okay, and comparing with an L50, you could see. Okay, so you can see the gap is really big because when you're leveling the line, especially when you're fishing, it could be that you're bulking that part up right there. So it gives you more space. Okay. Now, another thing to note is that there's a limit to this reel and how you spool it. Okay, I'm gonna zoom in just so you see. Okay, so you can see the gap here. Okay, the gap is actually quite big, which means you can't use light line. The recommended line for this is PE6. Okay, now you have to understand. You have to understand that for this particular reel, it's geared towards tuna and GT. So the line that you use for those is actually minimum PE6 anyway. So not suited for lines under PE6. Take note. Okay, that's it. Now let us open this baby up so that I can show you what's inside. Okay, so for any Studio Ocean Mark reel, you only need one screwdriver. That's it. Nothing fancy, just an ordinary screwdriver. Okay, so open this. For the L75, as with the L50, there are 3 screws. I think the L80 as well. The L100, or I'm not too sure actually. Let's check the L80. L80 has 4 screws. So L80 and L100 have 4 screws. L50 and below have 3. And the Blue Safari has 1, which is right here. And I actually, for this particular one, I just hand tighten it like that. See? Like that. And Bob's your uncle. For this, you need 1 screwdriver. You take it off. As you can see, these don't pop out. Okay. See, you can't take off the screws. Now, I have to wiggle. Okay. Now, see, here. So there's no screw to mess with. Okay, my screws don't fall. And that's very important, especially when you're in the field. My mistake, okay, when I asked for this reel and when they sent it to me, I did not ask for a spare spool, which I should have, because, you know, totally totally lapse of judgment there. And I honestly just totally forgot. Okay, so yeah, I'm gonna get that spool pretty soon. All right, so you have your retaining nut. Your spool pops out just like that. Okay, look at those massive, massive, massive gears. Pinion, the thrust bearing on this reel has a covering. The old ones don't have, but you can say, well, there's a rubber covering, but this one is very, very protected. rightfully so, because when you're casting, just to protect that part. And I think that's going to be something that's going to get rolled across the whole SOM line. But that's a very, very good seal right there. Obviously, pinion, and then supported by two bearings, and then the cam is in here, which I'm not going to fiddle around with. But look, I could take the spool off. Okay, nothing's going to fall. Very good design. Okay, so we have our drag here, drag housing. Thing to note is this plate right here, and this plate is where the magnet affects. Okay, so the magnetic force affects that plate. Not available in the jigging versions. Okay, and as I can see here, this thing's pretty thick. Yeah. So they have this feature for the casting reels. I'm gonna open that later on. Now the power shooter MAGBRAKE system, okay, which is this is called the power shooter MAGBRAKE system. This thing is light. Okay, this frame is actually light. I'm surprised. Okay, so as you move this here, okay, this goes up and down. This comes with 3 magnets. So there's this, and there's one here. I took the other magnet out because 2 makes it cast better for me. Again, if you don't know what you're doing, don't take that magnet off, okay? But these 2, enough for me. And if when I'm testing it, I'm gonna take the screwdriver. When I'm testing it, and if I find that 2 is actually still something that I can adjust to get more distance with less force, I am probably gonna take this other magnet off. Okay, so I'm gonna do that probably later on today. Now, if you want to add more magnets, you could add 6 more, or actually 5 more, because you have 1 magnet here, and then you can add 5 more. So technically, you can put up to 8 magnets on this thing, but you know, the 3 that they come with is more than enough. All right, now take this off. This is the covering of the drag assembly. Under there, you will find a bearing. Okay, that doesn't affect the cast. Okay, so with this, the spool bearings are down here. For some weird reason, that popped out. Not cool. I messed with this reel already, as you could tell. So that's my fault right there. Basically, this retainer here should actually stay. But you know what? We're gonna take it off anyway, because I'm gonna do something with the bearings. So there's a retainer, and then the spring, and then we can go ahead and take off the bearing. There is a sleeve. Okay, I am going to actually clean this, so I'm gonna take that, and then there's a bearing here. I wonder if I could take this from here. Yeah, okay, so the spool bearings we can take. There's 2 of these, and this bearing, or these 2 bearings, are what controls the casting. Okay, there's another spring, which is the spring behind this bearing. Now, what happens is, if the fish is fighting, this bearing and this bearing plus the bearing on the pinion is what fights the fish. Okay. Now, the thrust bearing that's here is what keeps everything very smooth and easy to reel. Now, Shimano has the system wherein they have the gears, uh, the fine teeth of the gears, and that's what makes it easier to crank. With Studio Ocean Mark, what it is the thrust bearing. This reel comes with the carbon drags, and it doesn't have the cushioning effect of cork. So as soon as the fish takes, bang, your drag is up there. It doesn't ramp up, it's immediately engaged. And you'll feel it as a huge, big, sharp tug. As opposed to the jigging reels, the normal Studio Ocean Mark reels, except for the Z Japan model, actually has the cork drag, the G40 cork drag, which is basically, it has a cushioning effect. Thing to note also is this O-ring right here, and it keeps the water intrusion down to a minimum, okay? If at all actually eliminated. So that's the spool, okay? Now, I am going to be cleaning these two right here so that they will spin more freely, okay? As it is, it actually spins okay, but I'll show you how I modify this. So stick around and we'll see that we'll actually get a bit more free spool. Alrighty? Alright, before we do this, alright, this is $1,000 reel. Actually, 1,400 uh, with the website that I checked. So take note, alright? I'm not gonna be liable for messing up your reel if you follow what I do here. Before we start, these two, I have a cup, tissues, I have this latte stirrer, WD-40 or some degreaser, anti-rust, all that. It's alcohol right there, and lighter fluid. Alrighty, so let's do that. Now I have my glasses on, and so I use a hook, and I find the retainer like that, and I'll take I'm taking the covers off basically. All right, so it needs to be a very sharp hook to be able to see. You run the hook until it stops because there's a gap there, and what you do is carefully just try and take the retainer off. Sometimes it's easy, sometimes it's a bit more difficult. Okay, but just keep at it, and you will eventually pop it off. Now, I'm not going to be putting these back on, so I don't have to be extra careful. If you want to put them back on, then yeah, be more careful. Okay, so there's the clip. Okay, I'm going to take that off like so. We'll put this here just so it's there. And then what we need to do is actually pry off the cover. Okay. Okay, so we have all the retainers here and the clips and the bearings, as you can see there. See, they are exposed. Okay, not spinning that much, as you can see. All right, so now what we need to do, put them all there. Actually, let us There we go. All right, so what we're gonna do first is lighter fluid. All right, there we go. So I don't use a lot of lighter fluid. It's just going to be right there. Okay. Now we take our our stir. Okay, and then we go like that. Turns it into an ultrasonic cleaner. Okay, like so. There we go. So do this for a few minutes. You do this for a few minutes. Now take note, you don't need a lot of liquid. Okay, now I'm gonna dump this. I am also going to get rid of all the liquid, okay, and all the other parts I don't need. Okay, so now that that's done, what I do, okay, let's test them out and see. Okay, just so they're already spinning a bit more freely. There we go. As you can see, you could actually hear it. Okay, so that's one, and then two. See, they're spinning freely. Now what we need to do is put this degreaser, WD-40 or something else similar. You can do this for bait casting reels as well. Right, so this wastes a lot of tissue. Okay, so now we have that. These spin so well. Okay, let's just dry them up. And go. There we go. Okay. Now we take off the WD-40, which is with the alcohol. So I don't. So basically, with the alcohol, you just spray it like that. Okay. Now I put them here because there's a lot of residue here. So what I'll do is I'll just, or you could just take another cup. I'm too lazy to do that, so I'm just gonna clean this up like so. Okay. And then put some alcohol there. Put this sucker. Okay, there we go. Then same thing. Okay. Then the good thing about alcohol is that it's easy to actually dry off, and it evaporates. So it kind of depends on, and you can see here, look at that, baby. Alrighty. So that spins more freely. Same with that. And you just have to let it get rid of all the, the crap that's there, that's inside. So this in itself is already a huge upgrade from the last bit. Now, what we need to do is just put them back in. So, drop one, like so. No, we have a spring that goes first. There we go. And then, see, that's exposed. This is not. I'll put the exposed bit in the inside. Okay, so there we go. And then we push that in. Take the sleeve. Put the sleeve in, like so. Okay, and then again, this is the exposed bit. We're gonna put that in like so. Okay, I'm gonna use this to push it in. Okay, so that it's in position. Take the C-clip and then, or the retainer, and then we push that in. Make sure that you actually do it better than I did last time. All right, so we just push that in so we know that it is inside and it won't pop out like that. Okay, this actually goes more in, right? So you could push that in and then have the retainer go inside a bit more. There we go. Okay, now that that's done, and here we just put this back on and we should be good. Now just clean this bit right here. Didn't need to, but just makes it look better. Alrighty, so that, take this. Okay, hand tighten. Okay, just hand tighten. See here, okay? This is where you see the effect of that of what we done. So it's really free spooling better. See, now just like that, and it should free spool for a really long time. What's happening here, of course, is that the bearings inside are supporting it. Now the thing with this is that the bearing here is also getting rotation. So it will slow down. This is the whole reason why I'm fixing the inner bearings, because at least what happens is that even with this bearing and the okay, hold on there. Even if the thrust bearing affects the cast, it's still okay. Okay, because I don't want to mess with the bearing here and the bearing here. But as you can see, the free spool is already way different. Look at that. It's spinning so much. It didn't used to spin like this. So now it's spinning smoother. And I'm pretty sure that on a cast, the free spool, it's way different than what it was. So that is going to make it so that the casts will be longer now. Longer, or it could be that we are going to use less force to get the same distance. And for me, the less energy that I use, the better. Because remember, I'm a heart patient, and the less effort, upper body effort that I do, the better for me. I take note for a lot of people that are out there just because you have trouble with your heart, it doesn't mean to say that you have to stop. You just have to, like for me, tweak things. In the past, I used to do this for my reels, um, just so I get more distance. Now, look at that. Way better than it was. That is cool. Okay, so free spool on this is way better than it did before. Okay, then with the magnet right there. So the magnet has some effect. You can see. Okay, that's with the magnet turned all the way up, and then that's with the magnet turned all the way out. It's still some. It's there's the magnet's gonna be affecting it even if it's on the minimum, but that's it. Um, if there's wind that picks up, I just put it somewhere there. 2 clicks, 1 click. Last time it was 1 click, and it was perfect for me. But now that this is modified, I'm thinking that, or a bit modified, I'm thinking that maybe I put more. Okay, but that is it. This is the mouthful right here. BEH L75 XH/R, because this is a right hand reel, MAGBRAKE. And yeah, pretty good. I'm quite happy with it, and I'm looking forward to using it. I'm probably gonna go and test this out today, just so you know um, we get some time with it. But yeah, that's it. Hopefully you found this video interesting. I'll see you guys in the next one. If you want to support this channel, go ahead and click that membership button. If you learned something, give it a thumbs up, and share this video if you have friends that might be interested in this reel. Lots of content in the channel, of course. But yeah, that's it for this one. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Class dismissed.
Yeah, all of you.